Actually, on SAGE, we don't only have 21 billion shortfall. We have 20.86 billion funding gap on SAGE this financial year. But you remember we have areas of 2022, 2023, 2024 of 4.62 billion. We have a requirement to process the correction of national IDs for older persons who are supposed to benefit on SAGE. We require 8 billion. And so the whole funding gap that we have as of now is 33.48 billion, almost 34 billion. On SEGO, 7.7 billion. Disability grant, 8.8 billion. Nothing on children with disability as a grant. Nothing for the CDOs to ensure that they make critical and timely interventions on people who require these social protection interventions. Then you know we are really moving very, very badly. Rehabilitation centers for young people with disabilities, which have no budget at all. The whole budget has been shifted to a wrong area, and there are no food and non-food items provided for these rehabilitation centers. Isn't this going to cause a double jeopardy? That is the double vulnerability that Commissioner Prosper was talking about, which requires a double affirmative action. Where else would you put double affirmative action if it is not at the rehabilitation centers for young people with disabilities, who we have called out of their homes and put in a center, and we cannot provide food, and we cannot provide the necessary facilities? So that means government wants to kill its own people if we are not careful. So members, for me, I just call on you that the budget is under siege because the executive now is almost appropriating instead of the parliament. I think you watched the House 2 days ago. What was happening? That even the speaker was on siege, because while the majority of the House said no to the changes that the executive were proposing, the speaker had yes. And she said the yes have it, even when the yes were not there. So we are under siege when it comes to appropriation. And I think as the Uganda Parliamentary Forum on Social Protection, Gloria being one of the people in the Secretariat, we just need a very quick workshop for members of the Parliamentary Forum on Social Protection, who compose almost a third of the members of Parliament, of the 11th Parliament, so that we quickly agree on how we are going to move. I think one of the ideas we are hatching is to go back to the community leaders and sensitize them, give them all the information so that they can hold government to task. While the president is going to start on his rounds for his campaigns, every other community should hold him to explain and account to them why he doesn't care about the vulnerable people of the country. They should cite for him the realities that are on ground, that they have become blind about, so that the president comes out of the communities when he's charged and is ready to give us a supplementary budget for us to make interventions on this. And while we do that, we need now to be strategic on the floor, that we don't miss out on questions to the Prime Minister, we don't miss out on petitioning, on motions, on every other matter of national concern. We should make this a consistent matter of national concern until even the leadership of Parliament becomes tired and starts looking for solutions. For us, we are not going to stop talking. We are not going to stop speaking. And Gloria, don't get worried. I am going to continue to be a member of the Committee on Gender, because all members of Parliament are free to join into any committees that they need, especially when you know that there's a particular aspect that you need to promote and push about. So I will not stop being a member of the Committee on Gender, Labor and Social Development, because I must push the agenda on social protection until government becomes very, very responsive and sensitive to the matters of social protection. Into this agenda, for me, I come up with only a few strategies for us to take. The care work, training, and scholarships need an investment by government. Government should deliberately provide caregivers for older persons and people who are vulnerable, like people living with disabilities, so that they don't leave it to the private sector the way they have left ECD, early childhood development, to the private sector. It is going to be very expensive for the older persons and the people who live with older persons, and yet they have to go and fend for them and find bread for them. They would procure caregivers at an affordable price, and that caregivers need to be accessible for them so that they can care for these older persons as the families go to fend for them. We need a planning for pensioners, because the planning for pensioners has government tells them, we did not plan for you in the financial year budget. That means the data in the pensions sector is very, very inadequate. Their database is inadequate, is not utilizable at all. So we need to call on the pension sector to invest in data so that they predict the people who will soon go on pension and that they have their money in the budget, or they are able to plan for them in the budget. Because this is not something that just comes around like an accident. They know at what age people get pensionable, and therefore they should be able to plan for them in the budgets as they continue to come about. And let us also invest in assistive devices. I want to thank Yura and all the other players who are trying to come up with all sorts of assistive devices. So government that is at the same time, I think as government, we need to really invest in assistive devices for people with disabilities, the students and children who are going to school and they are disabled. They are themselves vulnerable, but they are causing their parents and guardians to also become vulnerable because they have to provide for people who will accompany them to school. They have to provide for a way that they will be accommodated by the buildings they find at school. Some of them are storied and they have to go upstairs. And so it becomes very expensive for these parents and guardians to support students and children with disabilities at their schools. And so it's a double vulnerability that requires a double affirmative. And so we need to call on government. The National Health Insurance Scheme should be conceived as a social protection intervention under the universal health coverage, so that the Ministry of Health can only be a partner, being that they are a service provider in health. But this should be left for social protection, and therefore Ministry of Gender should spearhead this as a universal health coverage for all the people in Uganda. Ministry of Health be partner, and the other departments can be partners as service providers. And then the coordination agency in the office of the Prime Minister needs to be called to order on synergies and meaningful coordination. What are they coordinating in this country if they cannot coordinate inclusion, equality, and equity for all the resources that we have for government? So, Office of the Prime Minister needs a call to order so that they do meaningful coordination that implements inclusion and social cohesion in this country. Of course, the traditional social protection systems need to be integrated in the national social protection policy. Strongly, let us come up with regulations that will ensure that the traditional social protection systems offer effective monitoring and reporting on the consumption of social protection systems, and also how effectively the social protection services reach to the people who ought to be reached. Because the loan-based schemes that government has introduced and is trying to put money too, because some of the money that was siphoned from the social protection systems was taken to PDM, and this PDM is loan-based. These people who are vulnerable don't have even the potential. They don't have even the capacity to demand for loans. Neither do they have the capacity to consume the loans effectively and be able to pay back. They are on the ground. They need a direct support from government that is not loan-based. So this kind of disaggregation must come out very clearly. I hope that the census results will give us a disaggregated and utilizable data. Out of the 10 million households we have in Uganda, which of these households are child-headed? Which of these households are older persons-headed homes? Which of these households live with older persons and are vulnerable? We need that data. As they continue to unpack their data, for me, I'm interested in the data that I will utilize to know how grave the matter of vulnerability exists in this country and what sort of interventions this country must come up with to ensure that no person is left behind. So, colleagues, I would like to call on your support. For us, we are coming for the communities so that the communities can raise up and put their matters forward. You saw Kenya recently, how the communities were in arms. The members of parliament were almost disabled on the matter of the finance bill. So I think in the event that members of parliament now are being gagged around for the budget, that they don't need to budget for social protection interventions, I think the option we have is to come to the communities and ensure the communities raise up on their feet to hold every other person accountable to them, and that government possibly will give a listening ear and start conceding to matters that concern the people. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Flavia. We are very, very